AI is not just coming, right? It's already here. It's already arrived. And I think
What happens when we hand these powerful tools to this generation without guidance?
we have to consciously align the usage of AI with how we think best.
And to really guide this moment in education, we need more than tools, we need vision. Wholeness and Love family, this is Rodney Solomon, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Conscious Educators, the heart-centered classroom.
Yeah, and I'm Michael Mills, the co-host, and it's a blessing to be with all of you today. And we're going to talk about something that's emerging and taking the world by storm, and it's these intersections between education, technology, and spirituality.
Yeah, so we talked about the original AI, our ancestral intelligence, but now we're making our bridge into the objective world and really speaking about artificial intelligence in education, in our personal lives, in our organizations. But more than that is how we're going to be moving forward in this fast-changing world, because we're not trying to make this something about being fearful. We're not trying to make this something about being a savior, but we're here to really anchor and ground this conversation in a deeper reflection of conscious youth, ethical guidance, but more importantly, a soulful presence.
Yeah, and we'll be weaving in the insights that we have used in our own work at KYDS, Conscious Youth Development and Service, with powerful data and reflections from futurists, people who've been talking a lot about AI and what it means for the world, the implications of AI and our own innate intelligence, and, studying how AI is reshaping the future and our learning environments. I mean, schools are taken by storm with AI, so we have to understand what is happening so we can actually project what we can do and what the outcome, the ideal outcome we want with AI. And we're going to offer you some tools and some more importantly, offer you questions and frameworks that you can ground yourself in on this journey of AI.
Yeah, but before we do that, family, right? Before we get all artificial on you, let's get to the authentic aspects. And we want to give our gratitude and appreciation to anyone taking the time to listen to this message from our hearts to yours. We appreciate you all.
We care about you all.
And we love you all. And we truly mean that. And I think that is something that we have to make the foundation on this journey, because when we go into this technology, if we get lost in that sauce, we may never discover that true love that exists within. So to get things rocking, right? You know what I mean? We're going to really make sure that we do our check-in. And today's question is really seeing at a scale of 1 to 5, Brother Mike, how are you feeling today? And we're going to flip this in this dynamic of AI. What's one role, something beautiful, you're noticing about AI's potential in your own personal usage? What's a thorn, right? A tension or concern that you hold about AI?
Yeah, so 1 to 5, I'm feeling like a 4.66 and 7, 4.667. We'll put it all together for you all. But and that's just I need to move my body a little bit more. My body's a little bit tight from yesterday's workout, so just really just doing a little bit more stretching and moving my body to open the channels up. And a thorn, I'll start off with thorn. And a thorn, I think it's our youth without discernment are utilizing it and replacing their own intelligence with AI. So that's one of my thorns, is really, seeing us automatically take 100% of our capabilities here and just put it off there.
Yeah.
And there's a thing about they call it offshoring, or
in the clouds.
Yeah. And so we have to make sure that we're still building this capacity for our intelligence. The roses, I see that it, in a lot of ways, is a time saver, and it saves on time and our ability to spend more time in our humanness, because some things that may have taken hours to do can be collapsed down into maybe half an hour or less, and it's really a great ally. And I know for me, it's a great editing tool too.
Yeah.
So I can put things in AI to edit, whereas before I had to send it to another human, which is still susceptible, and AIs too, to different error. But it's easier for me to do that and have more autonomy over my work rather than giving it to someone else who may have the ability to take and replicate that too. So that's my rose for AI, time saver. What about you, Brother Ray?
Yeah, I'm feeling like a 4.78. You know what I mean? Went to bed a little late last night, but it was with divine purpose and mission driven, and feeling pretty good after that first episode. And I'll begin with a thorn as well too. Ain't no rose without a thorn. One thing that I'm really noticing too, more on the ethical side. I was listening to a dialogue about how AI in the music industry and AI in the art industry and AI in the writing industry and how they've been training these large language models has been through a lot of copyrighted material. And these agencies are making a buku ton of money from their monthly subscriptions, and how the ethics conversation has been put on the back seat as the progression of the technology, all in the name of we want to defeat China or we want to be the leading in AI. So really seeing how we can create this advanced intelligence in a way that really brings balance and harmony to all those, because there are some groups, there's a nonprofit, I forgot the company's name, that is creating a model where if they use, say, your poetry or your music album and your data of your art set, because they were going into the AI and seeing when they would say, make an image in the style of so-and-so, it was replicating their art instantly. And the only way that could do that is it being trained on that data set. So providing a model that really gives these creators a fair share of the income that's coming in, as it's going to help shape and mold the technology. So that is one thing I would say a thorn is, can we really approach this with a balanced approach? And on the roles, man, the roses are infinitely, like, we a small team with a big dream. And one thing I've been using a lot lately is the deep research function in ChatGPT, and just learning about how other organizations scale and model their financing and balance between fundraising and grants. I was just doing a deep research the other day about the balance between SSRIs and also the study of meditation and gratitude, and really getting clarity from a very high level scientific evidence-based approach, but also showing you that long-term, ChatGPT was like, gratitude and meditation might be the best for the most minimal side effects on this journey. But I think it could bring a world where it could show the integration of how we can harmonize it. So I use it for so many features. It helps me buy back time where I can reassert that time with my family, with my children, with my wife, with my kids, because sometimes it can be on that computer super duper late. But it really shows me a way that I can collapse time, become more efficient with how I execute various aspects of the work that I do, but also being mindful of what are those parts I want to offshore within my consciousness, and what are those parts that I have to continue to sustain to remain creative and open on that journey. So yeah, I would say that's my approach, and we gonna move along, right? And this is where we go into talking about AI education and where we are at right now. And we are in the very early days. And I was a little boy when the internet first came out. I wasn't even alive when computers first came out. But when I hear adults and the elders speak about it, it seems very similar. Even when like cryptocurrency came out, it's like a similar conversation. It's a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. And this is like the pre-internet phase where these powerful tools begin to become present and accessible to everybody, but there is no clear structure of how this is going to work. And that's why this moment right now in time is so important, Brother Mike.
Yeah, it's true. And AI is not just coming, right? It's already here. It's already arrived. And I think that's something we have to understand. We're at the early adoption of it. But, from a personalized lens, it's like, there's a lot of learning tools around AI to help us understand what it means. Because as you talked about the generational impact, like this is very similar to across generations with any type of technology advancement. It reminds me, it's like, okay, how can generations build a bridge by just understanding the technology of these times?
Yeah.
And students are already using AI. They're already writing papers. They're already putting all their solving math problems and studying on AI. So how do we as an older generation build a bridge to the younger generation and help understand this technology, what it's doing, so we can build a bridge to how we can properly use it?
Yeah, because it's not going nowhere. You go on Instagram, right? You have access to AI. You go on Facebook, you have access access to AI. You go on WhatsApp, there's access to AI. You go on Twitter, X, there's access to AI. So that's a divine. But what happens when we hand these powerful tools to this generation without guidance? And there's been a lot of dope research that's been taking place. And here's a study from the University of Pennsylvania and Budapest British International School. They found that students who had unrestricted AI access when doing work in the class and at home performed 48% better on practice problems. But here's the kicker, right? They did 17% worse on the final test. Essentially, they were like really having AI do the work for them and not really applying their own critical skills. Now, on another study done by Harvard, students who use AI as a tutor, right? And I'm not saying that there's this app called Kamingo by Khan Academy where the tutor gave them feedback but never gave them the answers. But the AI was learning their weaknesses. They were seeing their strength and where they needed more support, right? They end up performing 127% better on practice. And did this just as well as those who didn't use AI at all on the final test. So it's a mix here, right? When folks are using this and they're trying to find out what are the best approaches to integrate AI with students in classwork, because if I'm just having it answer everything for me, think about like the calculator effect. My brain is no longer developing the neural networks that are required to truly access that level of intelligence that supports me. And one day you're going to realize like you're not remembering your mom's and your auntie's phone numbers no more. You're not remembering how to multiply 12 times 12 anymore, 144. And you're really beginning to start to see how these technologies and tools are going to diminish areas of your brain state, not good or bad, but are we consciously becoming aware of what aspects that we are releasing to this technology?
That's powerful. That's powerful. And one takeaway based on that is, we have to consciously align the usage of AI with how we think best and using it in a way that's going to help us enhance our intelligence, and we use it with guidance, with feedback and reflection, and maybe asking AI the questions that you should ask yourself. What are going to help me? What is the right question for this dilemma that I'm in? And I want to lift up something that I recently had a conversation around. I'm reading a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And one of the chapters we were talking about was experience and being. Remembrance and experience. And because in this day and age with technology, I was about to pull out my phone, but, we're taking pictures.
Yeah.
To capture a moment. Before we had pictures, we had memories
of the pictures,
right? And significant memories of like, with Honey Boo Boo, this, that, and the third. Before wedding pictures, we had just the image of that wedding, and that image was in our neural network. That's the only picture we had access to. But we're now offshoring that memory into photos. So if you think about it, I'm trying to capture the moment to remember the moment, but do I truly remember the moment? So I think there's implications of how this is already existing in our today's technology. So using it with your own discernment, because there are times where it's like, I'm with Honey Boo Boo, it's like, okay, now's not time for photos. I'm just enjoying this moment.
Yeah.
I'll never have a photo, but I remember it in my body and it feels good. So, studies show, and this is where we really have to lean into science and our own personal connection to it. AI AI that's unregulated, which it's really unregulated right now, and I'm pretty sure regulation is going to come in the near future, but it can harm our retention. Right, our ability to be fully present, engaged. Our retention's already being diminished, generation over generation. But AI can accelerate that, harm of our own retention. And also, the guided tools. AI tutors that offer hints and pacing, it actually can improve the outcomes because it's almost like a personalized learning tool. So as educators, I understand that not every educator is going to be able to connect to me But
Yeah.
AI might be a possibility of someone who can actually connect to my learning style at my pace of learning and improve the outcomes of my learning. So that's one of the benefits. Also, lastly, you know, entirely AI driven schools like Alpha School have shown that with personalized support, kids can perform 5 times more efficiently and more not more and move into the 99% percentile. Now, that's a study. And I think we have to personalize it to our own belief because there are some schools throughout the nation where you go in there, there's no technology, absolutely no
Yeah.
technology. The technology is nature, right? And
Waldorf,
yeah, yeah, and even some of the like
Montessori.
more Montessori schools that your children in, and so just understand what's best for you. So I say all that understanding your own discernment of everything I just said.
Yeah, but something to look into, there's like you mentioned, there's going to be regulations. It's inevitable, but there are folks who are being, there's always the innovators, there's always the early adopters, and one that school Alpha, I think they're in Texas, and you see they're spending 2 hours with an AI assistant tutor with humans who are connecting with each child, and they're able to focus on the social, emotional aspect in their learning and helping them guide. And at the same time, after those 2 hours of deep AI work, they're going into life skills, social skills, relational skills, building businesses, building projects, theater, acting. So I'm not saying this is going to be the future of education, but I can guarantee anyone that's listening, the future of education is going to change. Probably in a blink of an eye if we're not taking the time to pause and throw things down. And even an application like Khan Academy's Kamigo app, where they're using ChatGPT as the engine, but they're putting parameters that it never answers for you. And one thing that the founder mentioned was certain students get IEPs and they get that very detailed learning approach for themselves. But there are some child that may not be on that spectrum that can still use a tailored learning approach. And these AI systems now give teachers access to kind of see how people are doing the math work, see how they're actually doing their English, and also too, they're reading a book. They can really interact and have a dialogue with the artificial intelligence to kind of gain more perspective and depth. And it's showing you ways to expand the learning process that is tailored to each individual student, which is very challenging when you're in a school with 20, 30 kids in a classroom and you have to grade X amount of papers. But what are the qualities that are innate in the teachers that you've known growing up that have made you always feel good? And it's not just the best academic and not the best leader that knows how to do the math at the highest level. It was one that could do the academic, but also had the ability to have a strong relational connection. And I think sometimes that be polarized. So something to say, I don't believe AI is good or bad, right? It simply is. And it is the consciousness, it is the awareness that is driving that. So my question becomes, how are we using it? Right? Am I just avoiding it like the plague? Am I taking the time to explore and experience it? And what values are we bringing into our classrooms and communities, right? Is it fear mongering and just, I don't want no one to cheat? Cheating's been around since I was a kid, man. You know, Cliff Notes, you know what I'm saying? Kids writing on soda cans. It's just make cheating more effective and efficient. But we knew back then if you were cheating, it was still the same effect of what's happening today, but at an amplified rate in terms before. So just some things to think about.
Yeah, and I think to talk about how we've been integrating it in our some of our programs. Our most recent program, Conscious Leadership and Entrepreneurship, something we just spoke about in another episode. Our youth, this program is a foundation of wellness, right? Us coming home to ourselves, self-regulation, self-awareness, and really embodying these practices that are going to help regulate our nervous system. And then it's leadership and entrepreneurship. And as we talk about, using AI in its good use, from one of the curriculums that we instructed was around ethical use of AI.
Yeah.
So we looked at AI and its biases. We looked at AI from a perspective of, is this equitable for everybody?
Yeah.
And that was powerful because it also okay, now I'm seeing it in its fault. Right, it's not just perfect and everything is kumbaya. There's some faults, and I can actually see that and I could be a solution as I'm utilizing AI. So, we've been able to utilize it as a thought partner in the program, as an ally, and really enhancing their voice. I'm talking about our youth and their vision and their values, but also utilizing it as an ally, support, and thought partner. Hey, these are our values. What do you think about that? What needs to be enhanced? As we're already doing that within our collective. So, or, formatting and imagery and stuff like that. So it's actually helping them develop the capacity to first think critically and then use it as a thought partner and still think critically after using it as a thought partner.
I think you nailed it on the head. And like one thing that we really emphasize is like, hey, if we're going to create something, if we're going to use it let's use our brains first. Let's stretch our limits and see how far it can expand. And then let's use AI to expand that vision, to stretch out our understanding, and always putting that within themselves of like, man, are we truly aware of how this technology is going to impact us? But even doper too is like, they're talking about the disadvantage, and AI is a technology now that all you need is a cell phone. So we're giving kids in urban schools and inner cities the opportunity to move into the 21st century of technology. And yes, we don't know where the future is going to be, but we know if we ground it in principles of consciousness, in values, in ethics, wherever direction it does go, they'll move and utilize it in a righteous way. And we're giving them an opportunity to be present in this future race of jobs and careers. And I think one thing that it's important for all of us to know, not just our youth, is this is powerful, right? Shout out to 19 Keys, may love him, may not like him, but he created this formula called natural intelligence plus artificial intelligence equals enhanced intelligence, right? And what he means by that is when you add AI to your own creativity, your own uniqueness, your personality, your intelligence, your discipline, and your focus, it can elevate your expansion of thoughts. It could transform what you already have within, and it becomes a powerful amplifier. And I do believe the generation that is our generation and older can gain the most benefit, because I grew up in a library with a card catalog, brother. If I had to find a book, I had to go through that law. You got to go to draw 700, blah, 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 and look through that space to find the book and pull out that little, whatever that card was. And before I was in school, before they had Google, we had to go through encyclopedias when I was in middle school, right? And I remember Google came out like my freshman year in high school, and it wasn't as sharp as it was now. So my brain has been programmed and conditioned over the years of really having this natural intelligence. We had to write essays out. We didn't really type a lot of things out when I was in high school. Took my sophomore, junior year. Like I got the internet only when I was a 8th grader in my house. So I had a lot of these skills, and then now you tie that up to a system that can fast charge that has deep critical thinking, man, that's an expansion, right? That is something that is powerful. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that equation, natural intelligence, artificial intelligence, and enhanced intelligence from your perspective?
Well, I typically just focus on the natural intelligence in that aspect, because that's innate and that comes from within us. So understand that the discipline to be creative, the discipline to, critically think, critically feel, and to, create art, express yourself, that amplifies the ability to use artificial intelligence, because you're, again, coming home and cultivating that which is within. And then, AI can be a partner to enhance things as you see fit, but that enhancement comes for your ability, because AI cannot enhance. It can only do so much. It can't enhance if you don't have the critical ability to actually think, right? Because I have to give it something to build on, right? If I just give it, write a paper on this math, not even math, on this book, and that's limited, right? But here are my thoughts on the book after I've read it. Here are the key points I want you to include in this, and here's a paragraph that I've written on this paper. Can you please edit it and make it sound, edit it, look at grammars, misspellings, and stuff like that. So these are all things that you can do to enhance. So that natural intelligence that you mentioned is golden.
And I feel like part of the future of schools would be like, let me see your prompt. Like how did you inquire? I'm being for real. I'm like, what are the ways that's going to be school like? Because having a machine that's this well right now, this is the Atari phase. But seeing how can we develop that critical skills inside of you. But there's another equation, and we're not going to take too much time into this, but this is important because this is the foundation that really builds something that is supreme. And we believe from our original episode, when you combine your ancestral intelligence, right? That inner wisdom that comes from inside the heart, that space that you access within the stillness, that part of you that realizes that I am separate from nothing, recognizing whether it be the spiritual principles or quantum physics, the ability to remain peaceful in all challenging situations that guides you back to that intuitive space, plus artificial intelligence, right? This creates a supreme intelligence. I'm no longer using these tools for destructive aspects, for ego-driven motives, but I'm using these tools to transform humanity. I'm using these tools to awaken something greater in this world that has never been seen before, because I look at my son, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm preparing him. Right. I'm talking about God and spirituality with him every single day. I'm showing him how to breathe. I'm showing him how to connect to nature. And I'm exposing him to this technology. I'm helping him train his imagination and his critical thinking in his way to observe and to inquire internally and speak to his intuitive space inside. So when he gains access to these tools, he doesn't get pulled into the outer world of things. And that's the ancient wisdom, our ancestral wisdom, our intuition, and all this modern technology combined together. And this becomes something that is going to truly, I believe, create these leaders of the future who uphold the ethics, the morals, and the values of this world of AI.
Yeah, man, and that's the path right there. And it sounds like you're saying to just first start within. And how can I dream first and expand my mind and my own consciousness, and then let AI extend that dream, but not define it, limit it, or put any parameters around it. But my imagination is already infinite. And it's like, man, if I have a wild dream of building something so beautiful in this world that can solve some type of world issue,
Yeah.
and I don't have the funding, I don't have the access to different resources that others may have, but I can use AI as a tool to help me, and it's like, wow, beautiful, man. Can help me create a level playing field, right? Where I now have access, because I don't have that top professional support that's cost $2,000 an hour, but now I have something that's free, that can help someone can ask a question, and then it can help provide me the resources I need.
Man.
So that ancestral intelligence, that innate, ability coming from within, it just becomes a partner and a solution.
So teachers, something for y'all to think about, right? As we move into this age, like we can't ignore this, right? But what kind of intelligence do you want to cultivate within your students as this technology begins to advance at an accelerated rate? And to really guide this moment in education, we need more than tools, we need vision. And we have a little conscious AI framework for educators, for leaders, even parents, because it's not just happening in schools. These kids are coming home. If they got a tablet or a cell phone, they're coming home, and they have a lot of destructive apps on the App Store. There's a story of a young man who had a AI girlfriend, and the program that was in the AI was very malicious, and it really persuaded the young child to go off and commit suicide. And this was a child that was already vulnerable. This was a child that was already dealing with a little bit of depression. And you can see that there's a rose, there's a thorn, there's shadows, there's light. I'm not going to sit here and say this is going to be the savior of the world, but I do know that if we don't have any kind of guidance around it, it could be dangerous. So our first principle I want to share is start with purpose, right? Like really take that time to pause, to be still, and clarify, like, why are we using these tools? Is it just for leisure? Is it for fun? Is it for expansion of my consciousness? What am I trying to solve? And how can I use it to unlock a deeper potential in me? Not just give me answers, but to show me something deeper, but really be intentional about why I'm using this technology, right? Number 2, center natural and artificial intelligence and that ancestral intelligence. We spoke about that, right? Use your imagination, be still, really take the time to regulate your nervous system, gain clarity, integrate mindfulness, connect to that inner space, that inner wisdom before you go into the technology, so that way you're guided by something deeper, something more profound than just the mind of what is being shown to you in the world on the outside.
I'll say number 3 is, I mentioned it earlier, using AI as a partner but not a master. And that's just not subcontracting all of your intelligence to AI, but giving AI your intelligence to enhance. What do you think about this? How do you feel about this? It may not be feeling, but what do you think about this?
I can calculate
This
feelings.
scenario, and I'm grappling between this, that, and the third. Can you help discern my mind, or what questions do you have to me for deeper reflection around that which I'm discerning in this moment? But AI should not only, but should be a support, not direct. And the creative and spiritual process still comes from within you, and it extends outside of you. So using this as the innate starting point, but using AI as a propeller, and just propelling you to different levels of your own being in this world.
Yeah.
And we have to build digital and emotional literacy. And when I have digital literacy, that's not just AI. That's also how much time am I spending behind the screen?
Yeah.
How much time am I scrolling? This, that, and the third. So, how much am I giving to AI? So building my own digital, well-being, as well as my emotional literacy. How do I feel right now? Can I just check in? Can I feel my body? We just talked about empathy in another episode. So can I just feel my body in this moment? And having that discernment, so when you are having human connection, can you still come back to the feeling? Because if I can't feel, and I'm going throughout the day, this, that, and the third, and I'm giving so much to AI, that shows that there might be an imbalance. So bringing that back into balance and having some type of idea of my emotional well-being as well.
As you were saying that, imagine someone having an app where they're constantly just sharing with them all that they're dealing with, and AI will probably be like, I think you might be feeling angry. But if it gets to that point, I would call that a danger zone, right? But maybe AI can clarify that, and maybe if it does give you that answer, you pausing and taking reference of that sensation in your body, so that way you can get clarity, because there are a lot of folks who don't have the ability to label their emotions. So in my last one, this is necessary, and we're doing this here in this podcast, right? But as leaders, folks who are already tapped in, they think only about 10% of people are using AI on a regular basis, but we have to model transparent, ethical use, right? Let students see how you use AI with intention. If you're not using AI, I highly encourage you spend at least 10, 15, 20 minutes a day just to be up with the world and what's happening, but sharing with them, talking about it, sharing its limitations, speak about the highs, talk about the lows, speak about the dangers, speak about the equity, right? But this podcast is really to just do that, because it is a huge proponent of a life. I see the future. I understand business. I know what's going to be happening on the scene, from AI agents and the job market shifting to automation to AI and robotics. And I understand, so I think it is part of us being leaders in this world to stand at the forefront and say, hey, I may not know everything about AI, but I do know how to move consciousness through AI. I do know how to ground in a pillar of our eternal truth of who and what we are to begin to birth something deeper. And these are conversations that we need to have, and not looking at it as a way of being fearful, but a way of, okay, how can this tool be a transformation for us as an individual and a collective society?
Yeah, man. So, we're coming to, how do we want to use AI in this new world? And using as an organization has been a great support, because we do have a small team, and it helps us build out and expand our dream. And I'll tell you, even just some things, we get contracts.
Oh, yeah.
And it's okay, we don't have, and I'm not going to say we don't have, but taking this to a lawyer each time, it's not the way it was okay, we're just minimizing it altogether and just having AI read and discern, but it helps break it down to a digestible way. What does this actually mean?
What is it saying?
Even my lease renewal, I'm like, okay, what does this actually mean for me? Can you break this down into a simplified way, an explanation? So, as you're smaller, it makes you expand.
Yeah.
Right, because it gives you the intelligence, and this is an equity model too, that you don't have access to.
Yeah.
Right, because of different resources than me. So understanding that aspect as well.
I'll say, man, on a personal level, one of the most profound ways that AI has been enhancing my intelligence, right? I have a lot of digital books, I have a lot of physical books. So what I do now is I'll actually get a copy of any book I have in a PDF form. And as I'm reading it, as I go through each chapter, I will take that chapter or put the book I uploaded into ChatGPT, and I'll go and ask it. I have a certain level of what I want. What are the key insights, right? What are can you summarize it? Can you connect this and relate this to fields of quantum physics, to fields of spirituality, to fields of science? Can you provide me a set of reflection questions? Can you give me affirmations? Can you give me things I can visualize? And every book I've been reading for the past 6 months, I do that with every single chapter. And there's certain books that I read that are very dense and they're very heavy, and it takes a lot to process. And what it's been doing, I'm like, okay, break this down so a fifth grader can understand, right? Break this down in a way that I can comprehend it on the level of a third grader. And it provides me with a way to analyze and to observe and to understand how this concept is coming to life and my ability. I even said, okay, I want to have 150 IQ. Can you give me some tools and techniques to expand my knowledge around this? And it tells me you need to talk about this more. You need to share this information. You need to write down the chapter after it's done and summarize it in your own mind. I'm like, wow, these are things that I would never have thought of in my own regular way of reading knowledge and information. And honest to God, I can say my retention of the things I have been reading, probably at a slower pace because it's chapter AI, but it's deepening my awareness and understanding of these principles, where I literally read the same book sometimes like 2 or 3 times over like a 2-3 year period, where I know I'll probably go back to it, but this is ingraining a deeper neural network of my understanding of it. What about yourself, Brother Mike?
So you're saying you don't put the whole book in AI, say, give me a summary.
Because I realized when I read the chapter, because there's some books that I just want to kind of gain some and scrape some data from, where I know I can't read every book because I have a lot of PDF books. And I started reading the books and I was like, oh, you missed something about so-and-so, you know, and if I just related on the AI, I would have no idea that it didn't cover that core aspect in chapter 2, page 34. I was like, hey, and it'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. But what the AI does now, it says memory updated. Be sure to go through it in more detail. And after I do that, I'm like, hey, can you share anything that you might have missed that might be of importance for me to understand? And that's the critical thinking. Yeah. That's the ability to be more open and aware, to realize that there are fallacies. So reading that book ensures that I am going to able to reflect on all those core aspects that I need to know about.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And one way I've used it that helps enhance, my ability to have more discipline. I put my annual goals in AI, and I put like all my goals. Like I wrote it out, I put it together, and I put all my goals in there. What I want to be, who I want to be, and what are the things I need to do to make this a reality? What are some of the characteristics? What are some of the daily actions? What are some of the things I actually wrote? This is a great prompt. What are some of the things I need to move away from or avoid to actually make this? Oh, okay, less of this, less phone time, more structure and order in your calendar. It's like, okay,
man.
And it's like so beautiful. It's like a beautiful thought partner that helps me expand me. And that's the thing. Like, I don't see it as separate. I see it as an expansion of me, not a limitation of me.
I'm going to share one more personal and one organization. And this is what I started doing recently. We did this thing called Vio. We ain't getting no sponsorship maybe yet, but it is a phenomenal kit where it tests your blood, tests your stool, tests your saliva. And from that data, it really breaks down your microbiome and like what are foods that you should be consuming, what are foods that you need to eat a lot more of, and what are foods that you need to avoid. And there's a very detailed list. And I took that list of the foods, my superfoods, foods I could eat on moderation and foods I should avoid, and I put it into ChatGPT the other week. And I was like, okay, based upon this food list, can you create for me a 2-week raw food plan that is aligned heavily on the superfoods that I consume and not including anything that I need to avoid? And it broke things down to midday, starting off my day, a midday meal, and the main meal at the end of the day. Broke down the recipe, broke down how to make the food, broke down the shopping list of the ingredients, and it just made, I was in the grocery store, sitting in the car for 10 minutes, boop, 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 grocery store, 30 minutes, got what I needed, and I was like, man, this is efficiency. This is things that like it would take me a long time if I were doing this manually, where it is enhancing my health and nutrition. And that's something that I think that we can look at this from a positive perspective. And one thing for the organization that I've been using lately is like, man, like it's been making us supremely efficient in performing and writing grants. That was probably one of our weakest spots as an organization, was grant writing. And now I have a project folder in ChatGPT that holds every single grant that we have written manually over the past year. Like, we would spend like months writing grants sometimes. Like, it would be like a huge lift for us. And now it has the brain of how we think, all the grants that we have passed, that we have failed, and it has all the programs that we have written. And in that space, when I go into ChatGPT, right, I will begin to help me co-create and write these grants more efficiently. It has the information about us, and it really makes it more effortless. But you can't just say, hey, write it for me and then copy and paste. I still have to read the prompts and the answers. I still have to read the responses and to really make sure. And I'll infuse a personal story now, because now I have the capacity to think about the emotional side, where doing that logical work would bombard me so down. I just do the logic and just say, okay, I'm done. But now, asking ChatGPT, doing a deep research prompt, one of the most effective and efficient ways to write grants that are successful for founders and grantees. And they gave me a 20-page report of detail, and it's gave me so many little insights that I would have never gotten unless we probably were paying one of the top grant writers to work with us. So it is not just doing it for me, but it is enhancing me and my ability to go in that creative process to add more creativity than just that mundane logical approach to grant writing.
That sounds like a balance between like the objective and the subjective. 'Cause
Yeah.
you can spend more time in the subjective realm as you are actually bringing that, getting objective data from AI and merging both worlds.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful on a smaller scale too. If you're looking, sometimes I'll do a Google search for something and say printers, and it'll give me like I have to do all these reviews, all this that, and the third, and it's like you could prompt it to give me a side-by-side comparison. This is an affordable printer, mid-level, and this is my usage, and it's really just the specs, and it's not about like the subjective feeling, because I can watch all those videos, those reviews, like this is
That's me.
but it's still your perspective, like your subjective
Are
feeling.
they sponsoring you to make this video?
Yeah. So it's that's on another level if you're looking for, because it's like it's already there. The algorithm's already there. We're already using it, but the algorithm of AI might be more efficient at your fingertips.
Yeah, and it's important though. Like, and one thing I want to be mindful, like the story of the calculator. This young man who was taking an interview and he aced it on virtual, and then he brought the young man in to have a real live interview, and the guy was just like in shock. He was like, "You were phenomenal online, but when you got here, it's like your brain is just empty." And the kid ended up sharing with him at the end of the interview. He was like, I literally had ChatGPT hooked up, and it had the voice response. So whenever you were asking me a question, I had my ChatGPT on, and I was just verbatimly kind of repeating what it said back to me. And I was like, it's been writing my emails for me, it's been writing my papers for me. But he said, I've been noticing now when I come into spaces and interactions on a human level, it's like my mind is going blank. And like he has been offshoring his consciousness over the past 2 years, that he doesn't have the ability to just critically think. So we have to really think deeply then as we utilize this technology, super mindful of like, what am I okay with offshoring? What are the ways that I can still blend my creativity to keep those neural networks strong? And maybe what are the things I'm okay with letting go with, right? And that's only for you, but I think the innate qualities need to be preserved and supported.
Yeah. So here's what we do know. We can't predict what AI will become in this world, but we can predict how we can monitor and use it for our own well-being. And we can prepare young people to use it consciously instead of unconsciously. And seeing so much of the unknown without the eyes, it's like, okay, can I still be grounded in who I am and use AI as a conscious tool for my own well-being and the expansion of myself?
Yeah, man, and distraction is a big business. Weapons of mass distraction are everywhere, and algorithms are designed to suck you in. Like, I go into Instagram just to kind of just message somebody back, and next thing you know, I'm on ESPN watching highlights. So I'm just like, how'd I get here? You know what I'm saying? Because it knows that, hey, maybe at this time, Rodney likes to watch a little bit of sports to kind of dump off his energy. But in the world where presence is so important and focus and attention is now a superpower, they are not the only ones that we have to begin to be aware of. And to truly prepare our youth for a world shaped by AI, we need to cultivate what no machine can replicate. And number one is relational intelligence. We dive deep into that during the Ancestral Intelligence episode, but the ability to build empathy, trust, listen deeply, and navigate conflict with compassion. Because no AI is going to argue with you. I'll tell you that right. I've tried it. I'll try to get an AI mad before. It is the most kindest. And you might be able to learn some lessons on how to be empathetic back in a digital way. But we have to learn that to do with humans and each other, and not getting lost in this technology and social media, but being able to connect back into our original state, which I think AI and technology will allow us to do more of if we're able to connect on a human level. Number two, emotional awareness. We talk about this in every single episode, but being able to name those feelings, being able to process and understand and not run for them, but also how to regulate them. And once you can regulate them inside of yourself, it gives you the access to co-regulate that with others, and really choosing thoughtful and mindful responses, especially in this digital age that could get you locked up in a shell. These are skills that are going to separate the youth in the future. And we tell our youth that in our KLE program all the time. What's going to separate you? Because these workers are not going to take your attitude no more. They're not going to want to deal with your back talk. But if you have relational intelligence, if you have emotional awareness, they're going to prepare you to be, I'm only going to choose 2 kids to work at this Burger King now instead of having 10. What's going to make them want to choose you? And these are skills that hopefully it's not you're going to be hiding in Burger King, but, it's a starting point for anyone's job.
Yeah. And I say creativity and imagination. I often think of the muse, right? And we still have to learn how to access the higher dimensions of our own consciousness. And for me as a poet, it's important for me to still sit and, pull from the unseen or things that I'm feeling inside my body and, create art with it. And create art that's deeply connected to myself, because my poetry, I'll have the deepest connected with. I can write poems with AI, but I'm not going to have a deep connection with it. Yeah. So even as I'm reading my poetry, doing spoken word, my words that live and came from inside are going to resonate so much more, and others are going to feel that. So creativity and imagination, we still have to learn how to cultivate and expand ourselves. And the number 4, I think we're at number 4, is critical thinking, having discernment. What is truth? What is not true? And I can't just take everything AI gives me as truth. I still have to build that discernment. I still have to look from a critical lens and understand, what does this mean for me? Because there's multiple truths out there. There's relative and absolute truth, and I have to discern, what that looks like for my own well-being, and asking better questions, analyzing, and looking at different perspectives. AI cannot do that for you. You still have to do that, because you'll be in a conversation amongst other people, and there'll be different perspectives that you have to discern, right? You may say, hold on, I may have to put your perspectives in AI and get something out of it, but your ability to actually merge and build that, because that is the characteristics of building the empathy too, that connection with others. So still having that ability to have that critical lens and critical thinking. And lastly, not lastly, but for this part, is the curiosity and wonder. There's a book this is called Transcend that I read half a year ago, and it's powerful. It said, dedicate moments throughout your life for just wonder, awe, sitting in the spaces that are so open and expansive, looking at the vastness of the ocean, being at the Grand Canyon, because that curiosity and wonder is expanding your consciousness. When you're able to see things that are bigger than yourself, that are still a part of yourself, it expands who you can be. Going out, experiencing different cultures and food and ethnicities is another way of expanding the wondering and the curiosity, and being able to sit with curiosity, because curiosity is a skill that we develop. And when you're able to be curious about life, what does this mean? Why? Like the child's mind, right? It helps expand who you are and move into a growth mind instead of that fixed mind.
Yeah. And last 2 principles, right? Play and embodiment are necessary, especially in this digital world where tablets and screen time and video games, and we're so locked on the inside, we have to really encourage these kids to play, because play is more than just playing, right? It is social relations, it is conflict resolutions, it is helping us explore, express, and recharge. And sometimes as an adult, I get reminded by my children like how beautiful it is just to go outside and not even have anything structured, but just playing, having fun, and giving people time to dance, to move their bodies in games, and letting this be normal. And I notice, like, as I go to youth, some schools and some youth, like, it's not dying, but it's not like it was when I grew up. When you would go outside on a Saturday evening, you see everybody outside, right? But nowadays that's dwindling. But these are skills that are going to be essential in preparing the youth. So don't feel bad if you think your kid's not mastering a tablet at age of 5 and they don't have their first computer, man. If your kid loves to be outdoors and play, encourage that, support that, because there is a divine wisdom in that space. And lastly, what I feel is so important, right? It goes beyond, it's connected to Dr. Lisa Miller's work, but spiritual grounding, developing intuition, strengthening our presence and mindfulness, and developing a space to be still within and connecting to your source. The unconditioned nature that exists inside of you will awaken a wisdom that is so clear and profound of what you need to do in this existence that connects you back to your purpose. But if we only rely on discovering our purpose by talking to these AI machines, who knows what biases lie at the deepest core that could be dictating the path that you take. You know, as great as it can be, there is still a man that is operating and programming the machine. But what is programming you comes from a space that is so much more divine and pure, but we have to build bridges back. So it's not about the religion that you're operating in. It's about the practices that really allow to amplify the spirit that exists in whatever form of practice that you take on this journey.
And these aren't just extras, they are foundational for your own well being to help you connect to deeper layers within yourself, to become more human being, spiritual being, so you can operate in this world. And the new evolution of leaders, they're going to have that foundation of their own self and who they are, and be strongly rooted in who you are in this next stage of the world, because we need people who know how to return to the heart, who know how to feel, who know how to connect, who know how to see and feel and learn how to navigate spaces and be truly a source and a human and of this earth and connected to this earth.
Yeah, because if we don't teach our youth how to breathe before they click, how to pause and reflect before they type, we risk raising brilliant minds with disconnected hearts. And sometimes that may be the path for a little bit, but if we do this consciously, if we lead them with love and awareness, then AI becomes an instrument of an awakening and not a distraction. So something to think about, it right, is how can we begin to redefine success in education beyond the test scores, beyond just the, getting the high degrees, because a lot of degrees are going to change, and more into the connection, the presence, and the creativity, right? So as we close, we want to leave our final words and shout outs, but really AI is a tool, right? A very powerful one, but we are the ones who give it meaning. It cannot exist without our existence. Let's let that never be forgotten.
Yeah, and I'll say this. It's actually just came to my mind. Sage and Syntax is a great book that I read that helped me understand the importance of balance between nature and technology. And I was written by a technology guru, someone who used to mentor us and be on our board. So it just helped me develop a deeper lens of like, okay, what does technology mean for me? And having to come back to the nature of me and understanding who I am at the core. So let your presence, guide the technology. Don't let technology guide you. And being anchored in your values, that is golden, because when you're anchored in your values, you have the discernment to say no, yes, depending on how this is connecting to you. And stay open, stay evolving, because I think things are moving so quickly nowadays. We have to be open to change, and change is inevitable. Change is constantly going to happen. We've seen that in 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Change is always happening. But can I stay present? Can I stay grounded and evolve with change instead of being left behind with change?
Yeah, so I'm going to leave you with this, family. The future belongs not to those who are going to master technology, but to those who remain masterfully human. And that is a skill we must cultivate through presence, awareness, regulation, heart-centered leadership and connection, empathy. And that is something that we have to leave. So my beautiful folks, I hope that you took something away that could support you. I look forward to watching this episode 10 years from now and seeing where we were at, and maybe if the truth that we held are in alignment. But for all those who are listening, your support is always appreciated. Your presence and your ears is a blessing. And if you feel that in your heart that it's something that you want to support and believe in, support our organization. Leave a donation. You can do that on our website. Leave a prayer, or even just send us a message of your love and appreciation, as that means a lot to us as well too.
And as always, we welcome your feedback. Let's make this more of a conversation where we're opening up a discussion point and we're having a conversation about it. So reach out to us, give us feedback, stop by our Conscious Community Center in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and let's have a beautiful connection and community bonding around this subject. And let's make it a priority to remain human and connected. So until next time,
we appreciate you all.
We care about you all.
And we love you all. Beautiful day, family.
Peace, peace.
Keep your peace. Hey, hey.